got my end of the coffee shop here, so perfect.
What's up with Airbnb, HomeAway and the likes? Why is the vacation rental market all of a sudden so hot? Should the hotel industry be afraid, or is Airbnb beyond its peak? And how do they determine the optimal price? To get answers to these questions, I sat down virtually with Ian McHenry for an unconstrained conversation about the vacation rental business. Ian is the co-founder and CEO of Beyond Pricing, the most popular revenue management and dynamic pricing software for the vacation rental and home sharing market. Before Beyond Pricing, Ian worked as a consultant across a number of industries, including airlines and hotels. And I wanted to talk to him because of his expertise in the vacation rental market. As the hotel industry is still figuring out how to coexist with the likes of Airbnb, I was sure that Ian had some great insights to share. And I was right.
Record.
The first thing Ian and I wanted to get out of the way was that vacation rental is not new. It is only now, due to the buzz of Airbnb, that more people are talking about it. As Ian explains, especially in resort markets, revenue managers have always looked beyond hotels as their competitive set.
When you think of people worrying about this new competition, particularly in these cities from Airbnb is kind of who they generally talk about, but HomeAway has a ton of urban listings as well. If you talk to like a hotel revenue manager, a hotel owner in Maui, or in Aspen, or in Destin, Florida, I mean, they've been competing with vacation rentals for decades, right?
This, of course, is very comparable to how the hotel industry evolved. First, travel agents controlled the choices offered to consumers. Then the internet expanded the choices available, and hotels were forced to consider new competitive sets.
Ones that I've talked to on the hotel side, especially that have the street hotel inventory, aren't always thinking about vacation rentals, that someone is maybe thinking about getting 2 adjoining rooms in the Hyatt or the Marriott versus getting a condo over at the Hanua Kai in Maui, right?
Yeah. Interesting that I ran a search on London a couple of weeks back just for some other article I'm writing, and there was the first page that came up, it was 1 5-star hotel and the rest was all apartments.
Interesting.
And that kind of threw up the whole question of, do hotels really know who they're competing with, right?
Well, it's true. I mean, you probably have the same thing, right? When people are saying, hey, I'm a 5-star hotel, I'm only competing with other 5-star hotels. When you actually are competing with other options, the reality is essentially a 4-star hotel, other types of possibilities. And I think people get very narrow in thinking that their only competition are those 5 or 10 properties they have in their STR reports, right? I think what you're seeing now is people are saying, hey, I want accommodation in a certain place. And to your point, that can include vacation rentals.
What Ian is talking about is a critical shift in thinking of who your competitors are. No longer are you just competing with the 5 hotels in your traditional comp set you send to STR. Your competition includes who you're being grouped with on the OTA search pages, and whoever can provide a value proposition that is similar to yours, even if it's not a hotel. Next, I asked Ian about the evolution of revenue management and pricing in the vacation rental space. What is the current state?
Interesting comment you made earlier about the increasing sophistication of owners in revenue management and pricing. Do you see that similar to the transition that happened in the industry, or is there when you say somebody moved in hotels, right, from A to B to C, from Excel to more sophisticated reporting and then to algorithms? Is it faster? Is it going from A to C for the owners, or are they following the same path?
Yeah. No, I think it's going A to C. That's a great way to explain it.
Yeah.
And part of the reason is we've learned from the hotel space, and so we can leapfrog, just like there aren't really many landlines for phones in East Africa. It went just straight to cell phones. I think you're seeing it similarly for revenue management with vacation rentals.
What Ian is confirming is that revenue management and pricing are getting increasingly sophisticated even in the vacation rental space. Ian argued, however, that it is also a far more complex problem to solve.
We have a lot of other things that are more difficult.
First, each unit is different and each owner is different.
If you're one hotel, let's say you have maybe 5 room types, you have 5 prices per day to change, and so you have 200 rooms. If you're a vacation rental manager, You have 200 vacation rentals. You have to update, you have 200 room types.
Yeah.
You have to update 200 prices per day. And you also have to optimize for each single unit. You have 200 opportunities to screw up. And then you have an owner there who's going to bother you. So imagine if, like, as a hotel revenue manager, that owner, you had like 200 owners behind each room. And every time a room booked, they were analyzing it and getting on you that, hey, that was too low. You had to get every single room right.
Having been a revenue manager in large hotels, I was busy enough dealing with one owner or manager. I can only imagine what it must be like to have to deal with one owner per unit, each with their own priorities and expectations.
It's very difficult. It's pretty nerve-wracking.
Luckily, as Ian points out, there is automation.
And so it just lends itself to relying more on automation than you necessarily might have to with a hotel. You just can't update 200 rates a day and check each one. So you really have to kind of set your boundaries and let stuff run. So we sort of leapfrogged that whole stage where, you have kind of semi-automated software where you still have to go and improve rates and do all this other sort of stuff.
Like a recommendation.
Vacation rentals are not hotels. Their technology infrastructure is different, and how you approach pricing and revenue management is also very different. As a result, Ian had to adopt Beyond Pricing's approach to revenue management accordingly.
The way people originally did this, like the first kind of little efforts at it in vacation rentals, was hotel style.
Yeah.
They would say, okay, I have 200 units, but they're split evenly between 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. Let's call that a room type, basically. And you'd say, okay, I got all these 1 bedrooms. Let's see how booked up I am for a certain day versus last year. So if we take that 4th of July example, we'd say, oh wow, I'm 60% booked when the rest of the market's 30% booked. I need to increase my prices, and they would do that, right?
Yeah.
The problem with that would be there are 2 major things. One, a bunch of those people just got booked at way too low a price, and that owner is pissed. That was their one chance of getting a high rate for 4th of July. 2 is, within all of those 1 bedrooms, you might have a range from 5-star to 2-star. And so some of the ones not getting booked are because you're lumping them in with these others that are actually more premium products.
Right. So for Ian and his team, the question was, how do you approach the problem specifically for this segment of the industry?
When Beyond Pricing started, we actually started with individual owners for kind of 2 reasons. One, we knew that even if you had a property manager with 200 units, they still have that individual owner behind it. So you need to optimize for that one owner. You can't sell some of your rooms at $200 and then some later at $600 and not worry about it because all that matters is the average, right? So we were kind of forced to say, hey, let's solve for that single room.
Right.
And how do we do that? We can't look at, what percentage of that room is booked up for a given date because, once they book, that's it. 1 to 0.
Ian described a number of other factors that his company is considering.
Forward-looking demand signals, which will be kind of external. 2, to see sort of what are those fluctuations in demand and how are things booking up kind of in the market. I mean, we'll look at hotel pricing as an indicator. We'll look at flights and arrivals.
Right.
We'll look at a lot of these other sorts of things. It's just we have to rely more on that than you would with a hotel. There's a lot more fancy math, but at the very basic level, that's it.
It's fascinating to hear Ian talk about how his company tackled the problem of optimizing for a single unit and then worked his way up from there. While the challenges of price optimization are the same, Beyond Pricing's approach to looking predominantly at market data, including hotel pricing and quality, are something the hotel industry can definitely learn from. In the last chapter of our conversation, I wanted to hear from Ian his perspective of the future of the vacation rental industry. Pricing over 30,000 units every day, Beyond Pricing has a front row seat, and Ian had some interesting thoughts to share.
We're hearing about Airbnb investing or working with investors that are building kind of purpose-built buildings, right, and developments, and that allows you to rent a place, but then within that you can also rent it out to an Airbnb guest when you're not at that place, which I think is kind of cool, right? Would I do that? Probably yes. If I would rent a place and I'm not around, I travel 100 days a year. Why not make money out of it while it's empty, right? Is that a trend
Sure.
that you could see growing, or is you think that's going to be like a one-off?
Yeah, there's a company called Stay Alfred, and they basically take out master leases on pretty commodity condo type units,
Right.
In urban areas, and they will take out the master lease and then they will furnish it and manage it as a vacation rental. And they just announced in Nashville, in the building that's like the tallest building there, they just took out leases on 140 units, right?
Right.
And basically created a 140 room hotel within this condo unit. They did that because there's still right now an arbitrage opportunity between long-term rent and short-term rent, right? Mm-hmm. And so that is happening. You have the same thing in downtown LA. Actually, a number of the high-rise condo units are zoned for mixed use, right? Like you can do them as vacation rentals as well. The problem with that is it's a supply problem, right? Which is at some point, and I think we're seeing this increasingly in cities, Airbnb is shrinking even in some cities.
Wait, say that again?
Airbnb is shrinking even in some cities. In San Diego, it shrunk.
Right.
There are fewer vacation rentals this year than there were last year, and it's because you kind of reach the saturation point.
That's huge. From his perspective, Ian is observing that Airbnb has reached a saturation point in certain markets.
We found, and what I've talked about with you, Klaus, is that again, at current kind of demand levels for Airbnb, and we think it's kind of, hitting a bit of saturation in a lot of places, but if more than 20% of the inventory in a given market of accommodations is Airbnbs or vacation rentals, like it's saturated.
Ian is not the only one to observe a slowdown in Airbnb's volume. Morgan Stanley at the end of last year also issued a report confirming the same trends.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense. Like any sort of high growth early stage company, you don't grow at 150% every single year. I think Airbnb is sub 50% this year. I mean, it's almost 10 years old at this point. Really, the only growth this last year, or the main source of growth for Airbnb, has been China and existing vacation rental markets in kind of non-urban Europe is what we saw.
Has Airbnb grown so fast that it has reached its saturation point in many markets? Of course, there are many more markets to explore, especially in Asia and China, which Airbnb has identified as a key priority. Only time will tell. Ian and his team definitely have their finger on the pulse of the vacation rental market. I was thankful that he was willing to share the particularities of pricing and revenue management in the sector of the industry, and for another great unconstrained conversation. I also asked Ian about his advice for aspiring entrepreneurs. Check out the bonus video on the Unconstrained Conversation YouTube channel.